The suspended ceiling that I'll be installing is going to be 2x2 ceiling tiles. And so I was a little confused at first because I was thinking in terms of 2x2, but actually your main beams are spaced 4 feet apart. Then you use the 4-foot cross tees, which were later broken into 2-foot squares. So that's what had me confused, not having ever worked with suspended ceiling before. I had one wooden wall, which I used the wall molding on. The other 3 walls were concrete block, so I used the main tee as explained in the manufacturer's instructions. The main tee is hung from the wall with the lag screws. But I used a lot of this wall molding on other things, which you'll see later on in the video. You can use these concrete screws, and you can also buy them with the masonry bit, which works real well. However, I found out that by drilling a hole in the block and using a drywall screw, a sheetrock screw, and a piece of insulated wire to help fill the hole, that worked real well. And these Tapcon screws are great, but they're very expensive. When you drill a hole in concrete or block, sometimes the hole is just a little too big for the screw. I'll solve this by using insulated wire of the proper size to make a good filler for that hole. Cut a little section of insulated wire. Also, these ends of plastic wire ties make good filler for the holes to make the screw good and tight. A little experimenting and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So I used the sheetrock screws. When you have to cut small pieces to go around wires or pipes, then those will have to be screwed to the wall, whether you use the main tees or the wall molding. Don't try to hang very small pieces of the wall molding or the main tee by wire. That just doesn't work good. Go ahead and screw them to the wall. Using a main tee, when you have to screw small pieces of main tee to the wall, you'll need a little wood spacer behind it. You'll see what I mean when you start to do the job. Boxes have to be built around the windows and the doors so that they will still operate. And you'll see those boxes and how I built them a little later on in this video. The basement entry door on the left will have to have a large box built for it because that door has to open completely. The other door opens into the playroom and it just needs a shallow box, as you'll see in a few minutes. The duct you see here will be hidden by the ceiling, no problem, but the shelves are hanging from the floor joist. They're going to have to be modified. And the ceiling will have to go around the water heater. All the pegboard that held my tools will have to be shortened in order to clear the new ceiling. Now here's a big problem, at least for me, and I could not find out online how to do this. I need to make a pocket for this garage door to slide up into. No problem with that garage door opener. It'll be up under the new ceiling, but I have to make a pocket. I have to figure out how to do that. Also, the shelf you see beside the window, that hung from the floor joist, and I had to move that shelf down and screw it to the wall. I'll have to build sheetrock boxes around these ducts, and that air conditioning and heat vent that you see in that duct is going to have to be modified to work too. I decided that the easiest and best way to do this project was to go ahead and build an enclosure for the furnace with sheetrock. And this low-hanging air intake duct is a major problem. I'm going to have to build a box around that. Here is the piece for the door with a piece screwed to the top to keep it square. This is all made out of 1x12. This is the box for the window with a notch to clear the duct. The bottom edge of these boxes must come down even with your ceiling line. This box is for the playroom door. Wall molding will go around the bottom edge of these boxes. Like I say, they're even with the ceiling line. Another view of the window box showing that it's even with the chalk line. Another view clearing the duct. These boxes are screwed together with 1 5/8 sheetrock screws. These boxes must be hung plumb and level, and I also had to build a box for the garage door. I made an end panel out of sheetrock, and you can also see that I braced this box. I have sheetrocked back from the door opening to where it'll make it look better with the door open, as you see here. These sheetrock end panels do make it look better, don't you think? Now I need to make a pocket for this door to slide up in. Now this is my own idea. I made it out of 1x5s vertically hung with plumbing strap. These 1x5s are hung right underneath the garage door track, and that plumbing strap extends all the way to the floor joist between the track and a wood support that I screwed to that track to make it a little bit more stable. At the bottom edge of this plumbing strap there is a drywall screw, sheetrock screw, screwed into that 1x5 to keep that loop from moving off the end of the 1x5. Should I ever have to do a repair to this garage door opener, this will make it a lot easier to remove. As you see here, these 1x5s have been spliced together. They're glued and screwed to extend an 8-foot 1x5 to a 10-foot. Now I'm going to start framing in this furnace to make an enclosure. And here's another view showing where I'll have to leave an opening for service. I'll be painting this entire floor, so I've painted around where the enclosure will go. And here I've started to build my frame around the furnace with 2x4s, making sure that the corners are squared and screwed. 4 feet up from the bottom you'll have another piece of sheetrock. You need a wood support that'll span the joint of the two pieces. These 2x4s are screwed to the concrete floor with steel screws. I have supports for this drywall every 2 feet, vertically and horizontally. Since I'm working alone, using the air nailer was a real advantage till I could screw it. When you buy lumber, always take a few minutes to sight down it and pick out the best and straightest pieces that you can. Here I'm making plywood gussets or corner supports for the door that I'm making. Now you can work with a handsaw, but having power equipment like this table saw and this miter saw sure makes things go a lot quicker, especially when you're my age. Using a speed square to square the corners of the door before screwing. And here are the gussets on the door frame. I'll get into drywall in a few minutes, but this shows a keyhole saw. Pulling back in one direction to keep from tearing the paper to trim the sheetrock around this door I'm making. Once the sheetrock has been screwed to the door I made, then I need to cut some metal edge for the corners of this sheetrock. This metal is extremely sharp, so wear gloves if you're not accustomed to working with sharp metal. This 90-degree corner edge, the corner is slightly higher than the screw holes you see here. And so your sheetrock compound, your joint compound, which I'll talk about more later, will actually cover all the screw holes. So don't force this corner bead onto the door. Don't push it on tightly because it needs to be a little higher at that corner edge. Your sheetrock knife will be guided by that corner edge and allow you to apply your joint compound and cover all these screw holes. Screw this about every 4 or 5 inches to the door frame. This shows the metal corner bead installed. Do not force this, because if you do, the corner that you see here will not be higher than the screws. It's easy to make that mistake. Well, more about sheetrock later. This shows a knife putting joint compound on that corner bead. I'll continue the rest of this in part 3.